Hello mga kabolero, and we are now on the third part of our video series. So the coverage of this video is the descriptive statistics, and we will discuss each of the measure of central tendencies and other tools which are relevant in describing the properties of our data set. But before we move forward, let's first assess where we are now on our quantitative research statistical analysis process. So we are done with the creation of the frequency distribution table, and now we are heading towards the creation of the descriptive statistics, and of course, summarizing the descriptive statistics by showing a table. So before we share the descriptive statistical tools, let us first differentiate descriptive statistics from inferential statistics. And later on, we will discuss in detail what are the methods or tools using the inferential statistics. So descriptive statistics is the method used to describe the characteristics and or features of our data set, and it includes the determination of the commonality of responses from our survey. If you are watching Family Feud, that is the main goal of the game, which is to determine or to guess what is the highest or the common responses of the individuals who answer the survey, and the contestants will guess which of the items comes first and which are part of the survey responses from the 100 respondents. So the commonality of responses from our survey is also known as the measure of central tendency. And the tools which are commonly used in this method are the mean, median, mode, which are very basic tools to show us the central or the center or the midpoint of our data set. We also have other three tools, which are the skewness, standard deviation, and kurtosis, and we will discuss that as we move forward. Now, let's first discuss the mean. So the mean is the average of the data set, and this is the most commonly used method to get a single number to represent the center point of the data set. The next central tendency tool is, or the measure of central tendency is the median, and this is also known as the midpoint. And the very first step in getting the median is by arranging the data set in ascending or descending order. And the middle value in the arrangement is considered to be the median. That's a pretty straightforward solution to get the midpoint. And the last measure of central tendency is the mode. And the mode is frequently appearing response or responses. Maybe there are two modes, what we call the bimodal. There are three modes if all of those values appears with the same frequency in the data set. But one of the good things if we are using Microsoft Excel or other platforms or softwares in analytical assessment is that it's very the steps in examining each of these measures of central tendency is done in a very quick manner by using formulas. So I also mentioned about other three tools, which are the standard deviation, kurtosis, and skewness. So let's begin with standard deviation. Standard deviation is the measure if the responses are spread out throughout or spread throughout the chart or throughout our number line. And you will also find other references that saying that standard deviation is the square root of variance, which is the value representing the spread of the data. So as a low standard deviation means that the data are clustered around the mean, and a high standard deviation indicates that the data are more spread out. So if the standard deviation is close to zero or zero, that indicates that the data points are close to the mean or on the mean. And in contrast, a high or low standard deviation indicates that the data points are respectively above or below the mean. The next tool is the skewness. Skewness and kurtosis are necessary to determine which measure of central tendency is the most effective in determining the commonality of the distribution. I'll repeat this one because this is very important so that we will be able to determine which inferential statistics are we going to use on our data set. So basically, the skewness and kurtosis, again, are necessary to determine which measure of central tendency is the most effective in determining the commonality of the distribution. Let's begin with kurtosis. So a positive kurtosis, which is denoted by a kurtosis greater than 3. So the magic number here for kurtosis is 3, because for skewness, we have a different magic number. Again, remember that for kurtosis, we have 3 or great if the values or if the kurtosis is greater than 3, it implies that a distribution is having more extreme data values than a normal distribution. And the other term for a positive kurtosis, which is again greater than 3, is known as the leptokurtic distribution. And as you can see on the image, that the leptokurtic distribution has those extreme data values. And if you will imagine the Cartesian coordinate plane, the vertical axis corresponds to the frequency, and the x-axis contains the values of the ages, right? Or on our example, or the monthly expenses. And on the y-axis or the vertical axis, you have the frequency. That means that the extreme values are being answered by the respondents. So if the kurtosis is less than 3, it has a negative kurtosis, and it implies that the distribution has less or less outliers than a normal distribution. I mentioned about outliers, and outliers are those which are basically um, sporadic values which appears on our data set. For example, the age is uh 20. However, the expenses is above those above the monthly expenses response of the common answers of the respondents, and that would cause to be an outlier, right? And if we are saying about negative kurtosis, or if we are speaking about negative kurtosis, it has it's the type of the distribution which has thinner tails and is also known as the platykurtic distribution, from the word itself, platy or flat distribution. And lastly, if the distribution has a kurtosis exactly 3, it has the same outlier character as the normal distribution, and is considered to be the mesokurtic distribution. And mesokurtic distribution is like a bell, or we call it the normal bell curve. All right, so we're done with kurtosis. It has a a formula which is a bit complicated. And if you can see, mean is being used in the kurtosis formula. For the skewness, skewness is the measure if the outliers are appearing tremendously on our data set. And skewness is one of the tools which we are going to use to determine which inferential statistics is best to implement on our data set in testing our hypothesis and creating the conclusion. So when the skewness is equal to 0, that is the magic number. Earlier for kurtosis, we have 3, but for skewness, we have 0. It means that a perfectly symmetric distribution, all right? And the symmetry of a perfect skewness of 0 is like a bell curve, a perfect bell curve. If one tail is longer than the other, that distribution is considered asymmetric. And we have two different types. If the skewness is negative, then the distribution is skewed to the left. And when the positive skewness is being considered, it implies that a distribution is skewed to the right. And you may see on a right skewed distribution that the mean is being dragged away from the center or the midpoint of our bell curve. And also together with, if you will assess the left skew distribution, the mean is also dragged in the skew. And looking at the image on our slide, you will see that median is better as the representation as representation of the midpoint of the distribution. So when skewness is less than or greater than 0, we can say that the median is considered to be better representation of the midpoint of the distribution and not the mean. Mean is only considered to be the better the now let's go ahead and move forward with our activity. And in this case, we have completed this distribution table and the frequency distribution table, and we are now creating the descriptive statistics. The very first thing that we have to do is copy and paste both of the data set of the age and monthly expenses. And Excel has these formulas to be able to generate the data in terms of the kurtosis, skewness, the mean, median, mode, and standard deviation. So let's first have the age descriptive statistics and use the formulas from in Excel. So if we are asked to provide a kurtosis, the formula is equals Kurt and hit tab and select the data set. Don't include the header. And we have a negative 0.62592 kurtosis, and that is less than 3, right? For skewness, skewness is skew. This one is probabilistic skew, or the population, and what we are going to use is for the sample, the first one, and let's have that, and that's 0.57 or 0.6. That's almost near the 0 magic number for skewness, right? For the mean, that's very easy, average. Median, that's median. The formula is the same with what is being asked. For the mode, we have different types of mode, but we are going to use the mode that is the generic one. And the standard deviation, ST dev, and we will be using the standard deviation for the sample. And there you have it. So we're done with the descriptive statistics for age, but let's have a quick inference on what is the what does it mean if we get a negative 0.6259 blah 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 kurtosis, and based on what we have provided from the introduction, kurtosis less than 3 is what we call a platykurtic, or a negative kurtosis, platykurtic. And skewness greater than 0 is skewed to the right, or a positive skew. And what does it mean? So if we have a skewness of greater than 0, therefore outliers are present on our data set. And this means that median is the um, central tendency, or the measure, the better representation of the measure of central tendency, and not the mean, because the mean is being dragged by the skew. All right. And I think that's it for the age descriptive statistics. I will still show you the solution for the the monthly expenses descriptive statistics, just for reference. Okay, let's create this one. It's the same with the format of the age, but let's make sure that the mean, the median, and the mode are formatted as currency. All right, so kurtosis is also less than 3, and the skewness is also greater than 0. But looking at the skewness of the expenses, this this shows that the outliers are not tremendous as compared to the skewness of the age descriptives of the data set for age. And if we look at the data, or the chart, the monthly expenses distribution is way more looks like a bell as compared to the age distribution, where you have the spike not on the center of the distribution. For the monthly expenses, it almost likely fall in at the middle of the distribution table. And there you have it. So the last step that we are going to provide is the summary of the descriptive statistics. So we have the variables, the age and monthly expenses. We have each of the descriptive statistical tools that we have covered earlier. We have the age, or the kurtosis, the skewness, the mean, median, and mode, and also the standard deviation. For the monthly expenses, let's just make sure this is formatted in the currency. And that's it for this video. Oh, before I forget, um, Excel has a very easy way of providing or creating the descriptive statistics for a specific data set. All you have to do is go to data. This is a similar way where we created the FDT using histogram, but using data analysis, we will be selecting descriptive statistics and then hit OK. And the input range will be dependent on what do you want to compute. For this example, I will select age, and I checked on the labels in the first row. The output range, let's select this one. And then the options here are summary statistics, confidence level, kth largest, or kth smallest. This is uh, another a different statistical tool to be used. And what we need to select here is just the summary statistics. So looking at the age descriptive statistics, it automatically computed the mean, standard error, the median, mode, standard deviation, variance, kurtosis, skewness, range, minimum, maximum, sum, and count. And basically, all this were computed on our previous video. But the descriptive, it's part of the descriptive statistics table. And what we need to get in this specific answer from the data statistics are the mean, median, and mode. We have the standard deviation, and variance is just the square of standard deviation, kurtosis, and skewness. So these are the common measure of central tendency, and of course, the three different tools such as kurtosis, skewness, and standard deviation, which shows us different view or characteristics of our data set. And I don't want to lengthen this video for the monthly expenses because that is a very quick and easy step of generating the descriptive statistics. So I will now end this video. Thank you so much for listening, and please look forward for the last video which covers the inferential statistics. I don't think it's the last video because we still have the analysis or the inference and also creating the conclusion. So watch out for the upcoming videos. I hope you are learning from this video series. Thank you so much.